So
That is
complicated.
my alma mater.
I said OJ.
Yes, that too.
Well, we've had good alma maters, and I mean, good
Football-
graduates.
Your
and bad
football
graduates.
program has kind of faded into the background.
Okay, we are live on YouTube. Thank you everyone for joining us this Thank you for joining us this morning. Sorry. Guys.
Friday.
Guys, he's starting the meeting.
It's Shabbos, but come on. Like we're kibitzing, but we're gonna do it. Okay. So we'll begin. We're in First Kings still. Solomon is doing all kinds of amazing things and is built the temple and palaces, and he's married an Egyptian princess, and he's going to do some more stuff, which is always Solomon's
What's
want
the
to
verse
do.
chapter?
Chapter 10, verse
Yeah.
1.
Got it.
Verse 1. We'll start, of course, with our blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. If you say amen, you get full credit. There you go. Well, it's fine either way. Different people pronounce things differently. It's not good. Okay, so Malchat Shava, or the Queen of Sheba, I don't know why we say it that way, Shava, heard of Solomon's fame through the name of God, and she came to test him with hard questions. We're not exactly sure what that means. The first part, she heard of his fame through the name of God. And Steinsaltz says that it's just high levels of people kind of knew that he was the cleverest and possessed the special divine wisdom.
There are other people in history that were tested with riddles. I can't recall them exactly right offhand.
Yeah, in history, or like I'm familiar with it in a lot of parables and myths and stories and legends, right? Arthur and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that's just Monty Python. I'm not sure. But in any event, those are myths. Those aren't, that's not actual history. I'm not sure. Like, and again, I'm familiar with like Oedipus and stuff, but like, again, that's not history, right? That's a myth. That's a story, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, so it's a great plot device in story, which, I mean, that's a meta conversation we're moving into now. But I'm not sure how often in real history, just because, like, how can you predict how someone's going to answer a riddle? I think that's a very bad way to do foreign policy. Just my opinion. I'm no politician, but I wouldn't recommend going into big meetings and posing riddles to people. You never know, unless you've got a specific point for doing so, maybe. But and this is actually, it's a good point that you're making, because she comes here. She's not coming to do anything political in nature. She's here just because she's fascinated by his potential to be so, like the way people in Greek stories would go visit, and maybe, in real life too, this is history, would go visit oracles and things, would visit soothsayers, people who would try and divine intentions. That was part of their religion. And so, in different parts of Greece.
Soothsayers and divinations not proscribed in Judaism.
It is. You're not supposed to do it. Right. Yeah, it's prescribed. Okay. So she came to test him with hard questions. She arrived in Jerusalem with a very large retinue, with camels bearing spices, a great quantity of gold and precious stones. When she came to Solomon, she asked him all that she had in mind, or literally, Kol asher haya im levava, so all that was in her heart, which I think is a more poetic, like, it's poetic, but also, like, it's interesting. it's interesting how you could interpret that differently, whether you read it as mind or heart. Of course, when you're saying something was in their heart, then fair enough. It had a similar meaning. Solomon had answers for all her questions. There was nothing that the king did not know, nothing to which he could not give her an answer. When the queen of Sheba observed all of Solomon's wisdom and the palace he had built, the fare of his table, the seating of his courtiers, the service and attire of his attendants, and his wine service, and the burnt offerings that he offered at the house of God, she was left breathless. Yeah, and I mean that's a really great translation of that. The lo hayava od ruach, and there was no more like breath of life in her. It took her breath away, is how Steinsaltz translates it. She said to the king, "The report I heard in my own land about you and your wisdom was true. But I did not believe the reports until I came and saw with my own eyes that not even the half had been told me. Your wisdom and wealth surpass the reports that I heard." How fortunate are your people, and how fortunate are these your courtiers, who are always in attendance on you and can hear your wisdom. Praised be the eternal your God, who delighted in you and set you on the throne of Israel. It is because of God's everlasting love for Israel that you were made king, to administer justice and righteousness. Yeah. This is a good point yeah.
Sheba is in Ethiopia or Yemen?
Sheva,
Ethiopia, I believe.
I think so too.
I mean, I'm not exactly sure. I don't want to comment. I didn't look it up. I'm not exactly sure.
I'm not sure I'm remembering this, but did Solomon not have a son with her, who then went to Ethiopia and was the head of the Jewish community?
I think that is the story that I mean, it may well be. That is the story that Beta Israel. No, is it Beta Israel or is it? I sometimes get the name for the community that went to India and the community of Ethiopia.
It's
flip.
Beta Israel.
Okay, it is okay. That's part of the story of their Genesis, I think, and they trace themselves to Solomon. Yes, to Solomon in that way. Which is why they were brought to Israel. And yeah. Anything else on this? What's she doing here?
Diplomacy.
Right? Like we heard, like she's not here. Commentators are like she's not here for politics, but she's doing some good politics, right? Like she's even using the blessing language of the people that she's visiting. You might do that if you were trying to. Right, exactly. Trying to put yourself into that society, show that you can speak the language of the people that are there. It's a conscientious thing to do. She presented the king with 120 talents of gold and a large quantity of spices and precious stones. Never again did such a vast quantity of spices arrive as that which the queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. Moreover, Hiram's fleet, which carried gold from Ophir, brought in from Ophir a huge quantity of almug wood and precious stones. So we're getting real rich now. So she brought in a bunch of riches. Separately, we read in the last chapter about they started with the help of Hiram and I want to say the Lebanese, but that's obviously not right. The Sidonians and the Phoenicians. They are learning to be seafarers, which we've never been. So this is the beginning of the Israelite Navy, and it's doing stuff. It's doing Navy stuff. It's bringing in bringing in the money and stuff, which again, this is an avenue to which the Israelites never had access up until now. And it's allowing them to become even more rich and powerful. The king used the almug wood for decorations in the Beit Adonai and in the royal palace, and for harps and lyres for the musicians. Such a quantity of almug wood has never arrived or been seen to this day. So this is like sandalwood. Again, it was only possible because they had a navy, right? Because you weren't going to be able to drag that much wood over land, I guess. King Solomon, in turn, gave the Queen of Sheba everything she wanted and asked for, in addition to what King Solomon gave her out of his royal bounty. Then she and her attendants left and returned to her own land. The weight of the gold that Solomon received every year was 666 talents of gold, besides what came from the traders, from the traffic of the merchants, and from all the kings of Arabia and the governors of the regions.
Find again the significance of the 666.
We don't have a. I mean, I recognized immediately that a couple people in here took notice of it, but it's not.
Sign of the beast.
Yeah, not we
It's our zip code.
Yes, right, yes. Besides it being the beginning of Topeka's zip code, it bears very little meaning to us.
This has nothing to do with.
I know the Christian
No,
connotation.
because we don't have,
That's
right.
Christian thing.
So it's
Right,
not
right.
related to paganism in any way, or
I have no idea I'm not being a pagan and only having lived in a Christian milieu, so I kind of understand Christianity because I lived in America my whole life. Paganism, I know nothing about. If it's a pagan thing, maybe it can be a pagan thing. I'm not a big supporter of pagan things myself, so
probably not in our.
I'm not sure, but we don't do.
Interesting.
We're not interested. This number, I don't think has that meaning. I think it's just. I think it's just a number.
Arbitrary.
I think in this case it's a number. I don't think it's.
Because sometimes the numbers do mean something, right?
Yes. We have certainly numbers have meaning, and I'm sure there's a gematria thing for 666 that you can for this that you can come up with. Although again, probably not, because again, the gematria is based on the words, and the words are just, shesh me'ot shishim v'shesh. So 660 and 6. So I mean, it's not really the same. You get that happens in your brain because you live in America or in a Christian. If you grew up in Algeria or Israel or India, maybe, I don't really know, but probably not. You wouldn't probably have that immediate association. In any event, what are we seeing here? What's one thing that's happening here? So she did that, she left. Why did she do any of that? Why was she there?
She didn't want to go to war with somebody so powerful. I mean, but
Well,
align
yeah.
with. And
Close,
curiosity, she said.
close.
Curiosity.
Well, sure, she said curiosity.
But it could be an alliance that they could then
Alliance.
have.
Close, I'm looking for a different word. It's not quite an alliance. An alliance implies what? We're kind of having this problem in the modern world with America and Israel. Is it an alliance, which is two partners working together, or is it suzerainty? Is it, in other words, is it one party imposing their will and conditions on another? And in this case, the reverse of that system, which is what? In Rome, in an individual level, it was patricians and
Plebeians.
right. So on the national level, a system of tributaries. Solomon's kingdom is getting so rich and powerful that the states that border on him are now sending him tribute so that he doesn't conquer them, or so that he'll protect them, or so that they'll like him. And sometimes you just send it with a lower level person. Sometimes you send it if you really need to make a connection. You send it with somebody important, like say this lady. She's the queen. I don't know who the king is. I don't know if she's like I'm not, but she's clearly important. Queen is an important title, and she's here. And oh, she's not here for politics. She's here because she's got so many questions, and she heard of his great wisdom. And of course, she happens to bring many spices and many talents of gold. And then we hear also, what are we getting? We're getting taxes from traders that are going through there via Maris. And we're getting Arabian kings and satrapies. I don't know, they're calling them governors, but they're not governors of an empire. So they're just kind of like warlord, like they're just like fiefdom chiefs, essentially. But they're all paying taxes, tribute, whatever you want to call it, to Solomon. And Solomon's going to do some stuff with it, because he's really rich now, so he can make really rich guy stuff. Like King Solomon made 200 shields of beaten gold, 600 shekels of gold to each shield. Again, right. That's so interesting. It describes the color change of the gold, but it's not. 600 shekels is a lot of gold. And he's going to make 200 shields of it for fun, essentially, right? Like this is going to be for this is not for war, right? This is for the fun.
Gold shields aren't very
right, because gold is a soft metal. You don't want that metal in defensive equipment generally, or in building materials, because again, it's not strong. It is pretty, but not strong. So maybe for like a household guard or something, maybe, just something it increases he looks like a rich guy, right? It may not be that useful, but he's not really worried about a personal, something like, so he's going to do that. It's
The golden ballroom.
I mean,
exactly.
But
he's got the gold. He's going to do stuff with the gold.
there were no banks and things to put them in, and so he put them in where it would be safe, the military and in the temple.
No, this is. I would argue if you're trying to preserve value of the gold, this is a waste, because you're alloying it into a shield is a really, really dumb way to preserve. As far as I understand, is not a good way to preserve the value of the gold, because if you ever needed it, it would be really hard for them to sift back out. So he's consigning this gold essentially, and he's got so much he can do that.
No.
He doesn't need to worry about. This is another thing. It's important. No, it's important to focus on this, because we're going to see later kings, not that many chapters in the next book, who are going to be looking around for gold they can scrape off of stuff. Unfortunately, because so it's important to see where Solomon is, to track the, unfortunately, downward descent of what will be in first the northern kingdom, and then eventually of Israel, and then eventually in Judah.
Well, it's the high point of Israel's wealth.
Yes, this is it right now. So we should see this. We should see this wealth, and it's great and it's big, but they want us to see that, and we need to focus on that based on everything else that's happening. Just to finish this section, it says, and 300 bucklers of beaten gold, 3 minas of gold to each buckler. Not really sure what a buckler is. Smaller shields. The king placed them in the Lebanon forest house. And of course, he's not done. He's got to have more rich guy stuff. So the king also made a large throne of ivory, and he overlaid it with refined gold. So he just plated it with gold. 6 steps led up to the throne, and the throne had a back with a rounded top and arms on either side of the seat. 2 lions stood beside the arms, and 12 lions stood on the 6 steps, 6 on either side. No such throne was ever made for any other kingdom. 6 steps.
I get
It's
your.
almost the Iron Throne, the Ivory Throne in this case, right? Dun 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 dun. No.
I get your point that this is meant to show the wealth of Israel at this time. But we have a king who's gone from being a very wise king to a hedonistic narcissist.
I think it's a little more. I'm not sure we're quite there. I'm not sure we're quite there. I take your point, and what I would adjust to it is just that I would say what we have is a king that's certainly enjoying the riches of the success that he has built upon his father's success and created this truly unified a kingdom that has a very great location. Location is everything, and they're in a great place. And with the surrounding powers all being weak right now, he has formed a pretty large, pretty powerful, well allied, well armed force. They're strong, they're militarily capable, they have an army and a navy, they have a lot of tax revenue. Things are good. This is as good as it can be. This is as good as it can be. So he builds this beautiful throne, lots of lions, right? To be fair, there used to be wild lions in Israel.
Well,
They got killed by not us. It wasn't us. We were gone
It would
already when
be
they killed the lions.
That's very impressive to a potential enemy to see that and say, we better not fight these guys. They've got all this power. Russia did the same thing. The Romanovs had gold everywhere.
Well, sure. I mean, all kinds of rich, powerful monarchies, authoritarian rulers do this. It's not outside the realm. And of course, it would have really stood out in the time, as clearly they are indicating we should see it as standing out. As they said, nothing like it was ever made for any other kingdom. So that's good. And further, we're going to get, all King Solomon's drinking cups were of gold, and all the utensils of the Lebanon forest house. This is his, main residence in the palace, right? Like the palace has many areas. This is his main one. Were of pure gold. Silver did not count for anything in Solomon's days, right? There's so much gold. If you were like, yo, I've got silver. You want something made of silver? And everyone's like, silver? Why not gold? Why isn't this gold? Everything should be made of gold, right? This is El Dorado. This is the city of gold, right? Yerushalayim Shel Zahav. I think that's a nice crossover reference. If you haven't heard Naomi Shemer's Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, you should listen to it. It's a great 1967 Jerusalem of Gold is the 1967 Jerusalem Day song, and then it got amended after the 6-Day War.
The gold's from Ophir. Where exactly was Ophir at?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up.
I'm not aware of any real gold deposits around that area.
Well, it was by ship that a lot of the gold came. So in other words, let's put it this way. It would be very easy if you took a ship from southern Israel. So the Red Sea, if you went down to Eilat and you took a ship down the Red Sea, which is not that deep, and then you managed to cross the Arabian Sea to get to Africa,
that's where I was
Egypt, Djibouti, all that stuff that's on the Horn of Africa, that area, you could trade for gold. You could get gold there, where people would have brought it from other parts of Africa to the coast to be traded, as they did throughout Africa. And that's how Africa was so rich at this time. I mean, there were huge, rich kingdoms in Africa at this time from the gold trade.
still there.
I don't know how much gold. I'm not so familiar with today with what Africa does with gold today. I'm just saying that was a huge source of their power and wealth throughout much of Africa's history was gold trading.
It's copper today, I know, in the Congo, the Chinese.
I mean, I know there's a lot of different things that are valuable today. We have different things if you can pull certain rare earths that we use for silicon out of the ground, that's worth more than gold. So,
This amount of wealth, are there about it in Egyptian documents or Assyrian documents or Philistine documents? Cause they're the people around.
There are no documents from this time.
Yeah,
We have these very occasional, believe me, extra biblical sources are really, really rare. We know about all the ones we can find. We have you can easily look on the internet and look up the extra, the Merneptah stele and the Teldan stele and different things that are from, but in this time period, no, we have very little. We have one thing from we have very little from this time period, basically nothing from the time of Solomon. So there you go. So
'Cause this was how long ago? Thousands
well,
of years ago that this.
3,000.
3,000 that was,
yeah, we think about 1000 BC.
BC, so 5,000.
1000 BCE is
Yeah,
generally accepted as the time of the Davidic Solomon United Kingdom of Israel. And then it's just after into the 900s that it breaks up into when Solomon dies, it breaks up after that.
And with the Bronze Age collapse around that time period, there were no written documents from any kingdom.
No.
Right, exactly. Everyone,
Okay,
all the other powers that kept records, like Egypt and
Yeah.
the Assyria or the Babylonians, then were suffering. They were really weak and going through their own internal kerfuffles, and being attacked by after they've been attacked by sea peoples and all that after that. So we don't have a lot from this time period. So it's a time of myth and legend. Okay, so just so we know, like, why was the gold so awesome? Because the king had a Tarshish fleet on the sea. So again, Tarshish being one of these seafaring cities on the coast, along with Hiram's fleet. Once every 3 years, the Tarshish fleet came in bearing gold and silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. So again, where were they trading? Pretty easy to tell. It's not like crazy to tell where they went. It wasn't that far. They just went down to the Horn of to the northern part of the Horn of Africa, and they traded there with those people, and they brought it back up to Eilat and walked it up to to Jerusalem from there. It's pretty flat actually if you go straight up until you get to Jerusalem. Then obviously there are a lot of mountains, but anyway, the point being, that's all they did. But having this naval capacity was a big thing, especially because, again, very few other forces. There was a real economic downturn for the whole region at this time. So the fact that there was someone willing to trade, it was probably good prices for them as well because of everything. So everything was very beneficial. Everything was coming up Solomon in this in this situation over and over, and it just compounds on itself. And so King Solomon surpassed all the monarchs on earth in wealth and in wisdom. And what could you want? What could be better? All the world came to pay homage to Solomon and to listen to the wisdom with which God had endowed him. And each one would bring tribute, silver and gold objects, robes, weapons and spices, horses and mules, in the amount due each year. Solomon assembled chariots and horses. He had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horses, which he stationed in the chariot towns and with the king in Jerusalem.
They're espousing the greatness of wisdom. Can you equate that with holiness too? I mean,
What do you mean? I mean, what do you mean equate it with
they're
holiness?
saying, they're suggesting that wisdom is the paramount, the most important thing.
I'm not sure they're saying that. I think they're saying that Solomon had the most of those two things. Keep in mind, from the ultimate perspective, from the Deuteronomic perspective, the king is not supposed to be a religious figure. He's supposed to reinforce the state religion.
All right.
He writes the Torah, but he lets the the high priests do the big high priest thing,
Separate.
which Solomon is kind of blurring the line a little bit.
Mhm.
But theoretically, we should want the king to be doing the king thing and the high priest to be doing the high priest thing. We should want to avoid investing everything into the king. What's more interesting to me here is, of course, what is another thing, the Deuteronomy. I hate doing that to that word. The Deuteronomist do to say that kings should or shouldn't do.
Did not accumulate horses.
One of the things they're not supposed to have too much of, they're not supposed to have too much of three things.
That's what I was in.
He has too much money. He might have too much. We don't know how much is too much, but he has more than anyone else on earth, which
That's what I was.
is or isn't. We don't know. If it isn't or is, some of you might have to change your political perspectives, I think. But we don't know. It's not saying. But he has a lot of money. He has more than anybody on earth. And now he's got 12,000 horses and 1,400 chariots.
Military power.
So he needs that. He's got a lot of land and he's got to keep, like, what are they saying about the chariot towns? What the commentator says is that what that means is those are police, essentially. These people go around, they're the king's men, right? They go around and they keep the law in the name of the king. It's like a standing army, in other words. Now, the Deuteronomist says don't have too many horses or money.
That's what I was.
And also wives.
About to have
We're
three
gonna
of those.
right, and we're right. So now we had money. Now he's got maybe too many horses. It doesn't say he has too many yet, but he has a lot. And soon he's gonna have a couple of wives. Again, is it gonna be too many? We'll find out. And by the way, different Jewish communities throughout history will read a lot into Solomon and his wife's situation. And some of us will decide, for reasons one or another, that we need to change what we're doing, and others of us will never change. And we'll keep that going forever until the 20th century.
That's why I was indirectly suggesting the nature they're extolling wisdom, but I think the Deuteronomists would clash, kind of.
Well, I mean, let's see, right? I mean, right now he's getting he's got the most wisdom, he's got the most money. He might not have the most horses, but he's got a bunch. Let's see what happens and what, I mean, we could just be riding the roller coaster up, right? If his downfall is coming, it doesn't mean that him going up means the book is saying he's the best and do exactly like him, right? We've had other figures, Saul most importantly, who the book was like, remember I was warning you, I was like, the book's ramping him up and Saul's the best and Saul wins and Saul is huge and Saul, and we're all like, oh yeah, Saul, and I'm like, watch out though, because just because it's puffing him up now doesn't mean that, let's see what happens. I just want to make you aware that, he's got gold. He's got so much gold that we're once again let know that the king made silver as plentiful in Jerusalem as stones, and cedars as plentiful as sycamores in the Shphelah. Shphelah is Shphelah is a region in Israel. It's the most fertile coastal lowland area, just south of Tel Aviv, and it's like mid-country, like Modi'in, down to just north of where like Ashkelon and Gaza are, and it's this region here, and near the coast, and it is beautiful, and there are many sycamores there, or there were. Now it's mostly farms. And silver was as plentiful as stones. I'll tell you, as someone who's been to Jerusalem, there are lots of stones. Stones are everywhere. And if silver was everywhere too, I might not have come back. I'm just kidding. But sadly, no longer. As we're gonna again, it's telling you this. This is the ramp up of the roller coaster. I'm warning you, there is a drop coming. So yeah, okay, we got those. That's great. Solomon's horses were procured from Mitzrayim and Q. I don't know why it does it this way. It says usually it says Egypt, but yeah. So Mitzrayim and Q, it's Egypt. The They came from Egypt. Egypt still is known for pretty good horses. I think they were for a long time anyway. Were known for producing very good, strong horses. The king's dealers would buy them from Q at a fixed price. So there you go. Now you know the situation of the horse buying. A chariot imported from Egypt cost 600 shekels of silver and a horse 150. These in turn were exported by them to all the kings of the Hittites and the kings of the Arameans. So again, remember the Hittites were saying, right? We even read in the Torah last night, I chanted for you. What did we call the people that lived? They were actually in Canaan at this time, in the time of Abraham. Also, we called them Bnei Chet, which we take to mean Hittites. So Hittites were maybe a sea people that came in, maybe Hyksos leftovers who came in. Maybe they came in from Turkey. There's a couple, and they come into Egypt, and the Levant, and they're like they end up mostly being a minority group that lives there. And the kings of the Arameans. So this is the region of, Aram, Syria, the Phoenician kings, all those kings. So all the kings of the Near East bought horses from Egypt. It's just trying to tell you, this was the place you got your horses if you were, it was the Kentucky of its day. I think maybe they still do horses. I'm not really sure.
Arabians.
Well, the Arabian horses. Oh, sure. Yeah, Arabians from Arabia, maybe. I don't know. Okay. So there you go. You got that. Okay, so now, as we said, we had the money and we have the horses. What is left? Boom, chapter 11.
Women.
Yep. V'hamelech Shlomo ahav nashim. King Solomon loved the ladies, is literally what that says. I don't know what to tell you. Right. Right. Nashim nachriot rabot. So he loved many foreign women. In addition to Pharaoh's daughter, who you already know that he married, Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Phoenician, and Hittite women. This is like Mambo number 5 in the biblical sense. He's just calling out like, I like Angela and Sandra and like he's just going like boom, 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 boom. It's crazy. I don't know what's going on here with Shlomo, but
Well, those were all alliances. That's how people.
I mean, they were also all the nations around him, right? I mean, alliances, sure. Nations he dominated economically, that too. Like, you call it an alliance. You say the same thing, and to be honest, and we're on the internet, but I'm going to say, like, Israel calls it an alliance with America. I think if you would ask Donald Trump what he thought about it, he would say, yeah, it's an alliance where the ally does whatever I tell them to. Which is not an alliance, for the record. That's when he's the suzerain, who rules over technically independent people. That makes Israel a tributary. So which is it? If you talk to Israel, it's an equal alliance where equal partners share things and do for each other. If you talk to some Americans, it's many different things. So it's just, you just gotta, you could present it as, oh, they're allies. Or you could present it as these women were sent to Solomon as, bride prices to keep them, what? You're familiar with this from other medieval things. What did they do? What happened if you beat someone in a war and they weren't gonna, they were still gonna rule, but in their little area? This happened a lot in Germany and stuff.
That they were in charge, right?
You saw this in Game of Thrones too. I saw that's probably a more contemporary reference. No, so I beat Sam in a war, and I want to make sure that Sam isn't going to go back to war with me. And Sam has 3 kids. What do I do?
Take the daughter.
Well, sometimes a son actually, because more value. But you say this person will come live with me as my guest. Guest is one word for it. Hostage might be another word for it, but they generally treat them kind of nice, so kind of. So you're a guest, hostage, whatever. The point being, you know, these are whole things that are happening, and also other women, because he's super rich. I mean, like, this isn't a new concept I'm presenting. There's a lot going on here. So all these women from the nations of which God had said to the Israelites, none of you shall join them, and none of them shall join you, lest they turn your heart away to follow their gods. Such Solomon clung to and loved. So what are we getting here? We're getting the beginning of that tension, right? We said we didn't know how much money was too much money. These Deuteronomic promises that the king has to live up to. And that we saw he has a firmly established throne, right? This is the throne. It's this brick I'm holding. And then he's got a lot of money, and we're still good. And he's got a lot of horses, we're still pretty good. And now we're getting a little shakier. Because it's like he's starting to touch one of those. He's starting to touch too many rails. Okay. He had 700 royal wives and 300 concubines, and his wives turned his heart away. So again, 700, these are the noble wives. These are wives that are people who you would consider it some form of, even if it's not an alliance, it's definitely a formal relationship that you need to maintain. And then there were 300 concubines, which
How
Okay.
did he have time?
I don't know. Well, you know what? If you want to know the answer to that, there's a book. Solomon wrote you a book to explain it. It's called Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs. So Solomon already wrote you a book about how you manage all that.
I think I disagree from my knowledge of it. The Song of Songs extols a relationship with, it's not numerous, but there's has to be with that certain person.
I think Song of Songs in its religious context is certainly trying to show the importance of a relationship between Israel and God as the two parties. But the subtext, as is commonly understood by the rabbis, is between a party and another in a romantic sexual way. That does not mean that it's only one party and that same party in every scene, is all I'm trying to say when it says those things. And that's all that needs to be said about that. Okay. And that's all that needs to be said about that. Okay. So in his old age, right? Because everything Solomon did, great things happened. He was young, he did great stuff. We're moving ahead. In his old age, his wives turned away Solomon's heart after other gods. And he was not as wholeheartedly devoted to the eternal his God as his father David had been. Solomon followed Ashtaroth, or Ashtaraz. Here it says Ashtoret, which is dumb because I know it is Ashtaroth, but anyway, it doesn't matter. The goddess of the Phoenicians, and Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. I like the detestation word Steinsaltz uses better. The detestation of the Ammonites. Shekets.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do rabbis explain that here's the wisest man?
Yeah.
And he's falling into this mess.
Well, one sec. So Solomon did what was, I just want to finish because there's at the end of the sugya is Solomon did what was displeasing to God and did not remain loyal to God like his father David.
Yeah.
This is an important version of this phrasing, which we're going to get a lot in assessing all kings that come after Solomon. They'll be judged on this Deuteronomic scale, which is, did they do what was pleasing to God or did they do what was displeasing to God? And even if they're rich, and even if the people have no wars and have lots of financial success, they will still declare a king to be a failure if they do what was bad in the eyes of God. And here we're getting this early thing, and we're getting especially right, Ashtaraz, this terrible is this post that big stick in the ground that they worshipped, and it was a lady lady stick.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know how a stick can have it, but they found a way. So the Ashtoreth. By the way, you'll see some crazy Jews today do some crazy stuff with us. Some stuff that's like, I'm not allowed to prescribe people to fire, thank God. But like, I would put these people in harem. They do some real harem-y stuff with Ashtoreth. But anyway, it's like, yeah, they're getting these foreign gods because again, like one of the problems, this is the key tension the Deuteronomist has with assimilation. And in this case, it's not so much our assimilation into their cultures, but of course, because it's Israel, it's their assimilation into our culture. And the idea that, quite frankly, I don't mean that, I'm not saying anything about a pluralistic, democratic country like America, but for a country like this, especially in this time, there is fear that there is cultural contamination that will come with migration. That if you freely allow all of your neighbors to enter and live among you, that they will contaminate your culture.
It's very prevalent today in Europe.
I was trying specifically not to make contemporary comparisons, but especially for democratic cultures in which openness and assimilation are both expected and usually positive. And I would argue Europe's problem mainly is the lack of interest in assimilation. They brought a bunch of people over and they put them in their own little ghettos and they never taught them anything. And then they expected them to just become whatever. And that's a different situation and not the fault of the
Well, the
people.
counter argument is that they don't want to be assimilated.
Well, I mean, that's what, to be fair, that's what they said about us while we were trying to assimilate. So I don't want to, it's like, it may be true, but it's also too often, I don't know enough about it to give that any credence because it's a common line. But in any event, this is 3,000 years ago, this was a concern in the Israelite kingdom. And clearly was a chief concern of the Deuteronomists who said, you will build a place, in that one place you will worship God, and you'll only worship God, and you'll never worship anything else, and don't let your heart be led astray, because your heart worships the one God. Remember, it's the Deuteronomist who writes, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. That, which is, I call in our service the watchword, that is the Deuteronomist who gives us those words. And any king who can't live up to it is going to be judged very harshly, because that is the ultimate thing you can't do, is transgress that. Once you've got more than one God, you have broken any association with the Jewish framework. Hence why paganism is the ultimate enemy of Judaism. Sorry, but it is. That's what the Jews saw. That's what we see it, have always seen it as. Because it is so morally relativistic and detached from what we see as the ultimate source of moral good that even if they accidentally happen upon moral good, it's an accident. And they could easily be misled if they were to change their mind. Hence Judaism's issues with paganism.
What exactly is paganism, remind me?
Judaism's definition of paganism is different, I think, than what pagans would definitionally call themselves. Judaism's definition of paganism is worship of
Polytheism.
well, it's polytheism, but it's also sometimes worship of one god when it's like Moloch, and it's it's one god, but it's a bad god. It's really worship of not our God, but not exactly. And there's room within there is some room for people to do some things that you might call pagan without getting the stamp, I would say, of being this is a pagan or this is a pagan thing. But pretty much many religions would be, especially ancient cults like you found in this time. This, again, you got to reckon with the pagans that they found themselves facing. These were pagans who burned people alive. This wasn't people who went and bought a crystal at a store and went woo over it. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but like I'm sorry, I'm not talking about like Wiccans and stuff. I mean, I don't know them, but I'm just saying I'm talking about like these people. This was some bad stuff. Like, oh well, what can we do for the rain to come? I know, burn your children.
Maybe I'm.
What? No, never do that. I'm okay. You know what? I will stand and say I am standing against burning children. I think it's bad. And I'll go to the mats on that one.
Maybe I'm too fanatical of zealotry, but I think worship of crystals and stuff like that leads to problematic situations.
I'm not weighing in on what anyone chooses to do in the privacy of their own home, besides the fact that if it then ends up being a problem for the rest of us,
That's an interesting
you're
question.
going to ruin the party for everyone.
That's another interesting, you're not interested in what people do in that. Ben Kingsley gave a commercial for the union and said there shouldn't be too much divergence between the public and the private life. I would kind of agree with
Ben
that.
Kingsley, the actor?
Yes.
I've never cared what an actor said about anything. Not once in my whole life.
Well,
Name me an actor.
Sorry, actors are fun on the stage, but they're not. They're not inherently intelligent or
I'm
anything.
basically saying I subscribe to that idea because when there's a big divergence between who you are publicly and privately, it's just problematic.
I think personally, one should live authentically. They should say things they mean and live by the things that they
But
believe.
if you're one thing,
If you do that, I'm good with you. If you're a liar and a misrepresenter, you're going to have your own problems in life, and it's not up to me.
Integrity.
Right. It's not up to me to condemn you. You're going to end up condemned just because you're living badly. I recommend that people live a good life in which they don't have to lie to themselves or others. That being said, I have no idea beyond that why we should care what somebody does. If they can live with it without causing harm to others and society, then I don't have a problem.
Question on the text.
Sure.
So is it just a linguistic distinction that we call one god a goddess and the other one an abomination, or is there like an actual like difference in how between these two figures, or?
So I think it's just that Milcom is an idol, and we often call idols abominations. Here, Shiketz comes from, idol is often in there. What are the translations here? That's not going to help. Okay, doesn't matter. But Ashterah, or here it says Ashterot, which is just the plural of Ashterah, which means many poles. They're worshiping all the poles. Ashterah is a goddess. She's known, we know of her. And again, some people today say we know of her because many Israelites worshipped her. And some people today, unfortunately, will also say, and this part is where we get into just a wee bit of blasphemy, that she was the wife of God, that Elohim was the male and Ashterah was the female, and that they were both Canaanite deities, and that the Israelites were male people who wanted to follow the male Yud-He Vav-He, and they abhorred worship of Ashterah. I don't think there's any evidence for that, but it's a lovely story for people who like stories. I don't even care if one of my colleagues, if they like that, that's on them. But in any event, that's why we know Ashterah is a different thing, and we know about Ashterah. So we know, we call Ashterah a goddess because we know. It's interesting here that Ashterah is labeled as a goddess of here it says the Sidonians or the Phoenicians, when some people would claim it's more of a Canaanite thing, but some people would claim Phoenicians are kind of Canaanite breakaways, even though I don't think that's really true. I think they came from the sea, but in any event,
One
Yeah.
oversight. We know how many horses and chariots and how much gold Solomon had.
yeah,
It doesn't say he also had a ton of testosterone.
Right.
probably 1,000 wives.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
maintaining that in an intimate relationship would have been a trip.
no, I'm sure they didn't, but he also, and at this point he's old also.
Right.
He's an old guy. Remember David at the end couldn't,
Would the psychiatrist call it the Don Juan complex?
no. Now, this is a different thing. This is,
Don Juan's into seducing, he is into acquiring.
Is there a difference?
Yes. 'Cause
okay,
these are
that's all right. We,
things.
in any event. Okay. So Solomon did what was displeasing to God and did not remain loyal to God, like his father David. At that time, Solomon built, and of course, you might be saying at that point, how did he go further than David? Well, this is how. He built a shrine for Chemosh, the abomination or the idol of Moab, on the hill near Jerusalem, and one for Molech, the idol of the Ammonites. And he did the same for all his foreign wives who offered and sacrificed to their gods. Right? And the commentators adding, right, the wives didn't have any responsibilities or anything, and they obviously didn't have time for Solomon to pay that much attention to them, so he let them have customs. He let them have their customs and stuff, but he shouldn't have, is the argument of this was an error. And it led to him falling in error. This is going to play into the rabbi's feelings, unfortunately not for egalitarian purposes, to the relations between men and women. And so just so you understand, when you get to rabbinic texts, this is part of that, where that comes from. God was angry with Solomon because his heart turned away from the eternal, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. Right? This wasn't like you'll find with later kings, by the way, who never, God is just, they hear, the priest says something about God, they go, okay, cool, there's a God, great. I believe it. Kind of. Right? Do they? Maybe some of them do. Some of them really do, but some of them might not. This is like, you saw me. God's like, we met, essentially. You can't, and you're gonna turn away? Like, I'm real. You know what I did for you. Who had appeared to him twice and had commanded him about this matter, not to follow other gods. He did not obey what God had commanded. So if not his wisdom, his direct revelation should have insulated him from this response. If Solomon can fall to the worship of other gods, if his heart can be turned away from God, what hope do the rest of us have?
When did he have a direct revelation? Remind me.
Twice. He had two dreams.
Dreams. Okay.
Once before his coronation and once earlier before he set it in motion. Or maybe once was before the coronation and once was after the completion of the house. Might have been that.
That's why I was jumping ahead when they were talking, extolling the greatness, the wisdom, because that's very secondary.
Yes, it was once in a dream after his coronation and the second time after the dedication of the temple. That's what it was. Okay.
And he asked for wisdom instead of wealth.
Right.
But I'm saying what wisdom and holiness are totally different things.
Well, I mean, yes, and that's the point here. He's saying even with all his wisdom, it didn't stop him from this result. And God said to Solomon, because you are guilty of this, or because it's been this way with you, you have not kept my covenant and the laws that I enjoined upon you. I will tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your servants. But for the sake of your father David, I will not do it in your lifetime. I will tear it away from your son. However, I will not tear away the whole kingdom. I will give your son one tribe for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem that I have chosen. So this is another version of cutting the baby in half, right?
Except I thought he gave him two tribes, Judah and Benjamin.
Yeah, technically, but Benjamin is, we don't talk about Benjamin. Better not to think too much about Benjamin. Every time we get Benjamin comes up, nothing good comes from it.
Like Saul, yeah.
And more importantly, what happened, the civil war before Saul, that led to Saul, was also Benjamin's fault.
Right.
And required a socialism of human bodies in order to reconstitute that tribe after we were forced to decimate them because of their rebellion. So yeah, technically too, but don't focus too much on them. And he's saying, right, so I said David's line would always be a king, and they will. There'll be a king over Jerusalem and Judah, like I promised David. But I'm going to take the northern kingdom away. Of course, God is creating another problem from that they will not solve. Which will be, well, where are those Jews who live up in that northern kingdom supposed to sacrifice? God would still say Jerusalem. But are two different kingdoms with two different kings going to get along that well? Probably not, even if they're supposed to share the same God. So again, God has plans for people, but people are not going to live up to God's expectations. So
Have they ever?
I mean, no. So he's going to do that. So God raised up an adversary against Solomon, the Edomite Hadad, who was of the royal family of Edom. When David was in Edom, Yoav, the army commander, went up to bury the slain, and he killed every male in Edom. For Yoav and all Israel stayed there for 6 months until he had killed off every male in Edom. That's genocide, by the way.
Oh,
just
that-
just worth noting, that is genocide, but it was a long time ago. Things were brutal. We'll give him a pass. But Hadad, together with some Edomites, servants of his father, escaped and headed for Egypt. Hadad was then a young boy. It's giving you the background story, the origin story. That's what they say for superhero movies, right? This is the origin story for Hadad of Edom. So you might have remembered that scene when they killed all the Edomite males, but he was snuck away as a boy to Egypt. Setting out from Midian, they came to Paran and took others from Paran along with them. Thus they came to Egypt, to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who gave him a house, assigned a food allowance to him, and granted him an estate. So he then had some money coming in too. Pharaoh took a great liking to Hadad and gave him his sister-in-law, the sister of Queen Tahpenes. Tahpenes? Okay. As wife. The sister of Tahpenes bore him a son, Genuvat. Tahpenes weaned him in Pharaoh's palace, and Genuvat remained in Pharaoh's palace among the sons of Pharaoh. Yeah, and this is an interesting note from the commentator, is that this is an interesting strategy by Pharaoh to kind of keep something in your back pocket, right? Because Pharaoh had also sent one of his daughters to marry Solomon, who had killed all this guy's countrymen. But he's like, you never know. This might come in handy one day to have the crown, the king in exile of the Edomites as my ward, and marry him to my daughter and raise him among my sons. This is literally what I was talking about earlier, except the Egyptians didn't beat them. Solomon did. But he's raising this guy to make him like him, so that when he goes back to be chief Edomite, Edom has an Egyptian, essentially, as a legitimate Egyptian, as king, Genuvat, son of a princess of Egypt, raised among the princes of Egypt, with all kinds of Egyptian priorities and culture and language. Except he's obviously important to Edom. When Hadad heard in Egypt that David had been laid to rest with his ancestors, and that Yoav, the army commander, was dead, Hadad said to Pharaoh, "Give me leave to go to my own country." Pharaoh replied, "What do you lack with me that you want to go to your own country?" But he said, "Nevertheless, give me leave to go." And so, as the commentator notes, the interesting thing was he did go back, and he began to establish power in his own land, and he pretended to be a vassal to Solomon. So even though Solomon held pretty tight control on his vassals, this guy played the game. And he agreed to be the vassal king that would rule Edom right? Technically, he rules Edom, but he really rules it for Solomon, and he pays taxes to Solomon. And so Solomon said, okay, my dad killed his dad and all his countrymen, but he's going to do it, so he didn't pay him any mind. He's like, I need somebody to do this job. And who better than the legitimate son of the last king of Edom to do it for me, right? To be my governor, essentially. That's how Solomon would have thought about it. Obviously, he thought about it differently. Yeah.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
I'm having two kinds of intrusive thoughts around this story. One out of Christianity, where isn't it King Herod is going to destroy all the males when he hears that the king of Israel is going to be born, and Joseph takes Mary and Jesus to Egypt. There's kind of a parallelism there. The other thought that I have is, and again, it's thousands of years later, but isn't it Edom that the Jews conquer and convert?
No, sorry. I thought you were going a different way. Edom is our forever enemy. Edom is the son of the redhead.
Esau.
Esau.
Yeah.
And Edom is Rome. Edom is whatever empire seeks to fully destroy us in the end. Isn't truly Amalek, it's Edom, says the rabbis. So no, they're not converted. As for your first thing, I beg people to start at the beginning. And I say this without any disrespect. Every story about Jesus is stolen from the Hebrew Bible. And if you're going to take them saving Jesus by spiriting him away, you really must go back to Moses, my friend.
Moses.
Which is where they took that story. Spiriting the child away is taken from the Moses story. This is just a repetition of that, the Moses story. And then that, again, this exists, and Jesus' story comes well after this story exists. The people in Jesus' time have this story and the Moses story to copy off of. I'm just saying, all these texts are written down already. They're you could just write them down yourself, but change the names. It's really not that hard. So you could throw in some farm animals. I agree. It makes it much more cute. But not different in any reasonable way. So I would urge you, whenever you're going to make a comparison, I urge you to go back to the beginning and go back to the first instance of that type scene.
It's Moshe.
And in this case, we're talking, the real one is Moshe. And this is the second, if you wanted to do that. Maybe not even the second. Maybe actually, maybe not the second. Depends. But in any event. Okay. So. Sorry. Oh no, we went way. What happened? Oh, here we go. Another adversary that God raised up against Solomon was Rezon, son of Eliada, who had fled from his lord, King Hadadezer of Zova. When David was slaughtering them, he gathered some men and became captain over a troop. They went to Damascus and settled there, and they established a kingdom in Damascus. He was an adversary of Israel all the days of Solomon. So he was up in the northern part. Remember, his kingdom extended basically up to Damascus. So on the edges of Damascus is the edge of Solomon's kingdom, and then these people are right on the edge there in Damascus, and they're causing trouble on the borders. He was an adversary of Israel all the days of Solomon, adding to the trouble caused by Hadad. He repudiated the authority of Israel and reigned over Aram. Jeroboam, interesting. I'm sorry, I need to use the bathroom real quick. Can we have a discussion? And I will be right back with you.
Well, discussion is that you could see the hegemony of Solomon gradually eroded.
Yeah.
And you can draw because he had wives or it was eroding and they made it whatever. And our reading of Jerusalem, my God, this tribe or that group and that group forever fighting each other. And we had that class on kingdoms or of the Middle East, and they put wives.
I think that I may have started with the wives, but it was because they were worshiping other gods.
Well, that's the explanation, but
It was the big thing that went bad.
yeah. Well, a lot of the Bible is God wouldn't have done it if wasn't for our sinfulness.
If it wasn't for a woman?
Well,
Or-
no, sinfulness, any kind. He made graven images and
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And I don't think God was unhappy with wives. He was unhappy with following their God.
That's what I was saying,
The
yeah.
psychiatric take on this too might be, remember Solomon starts out as a very humble man. All that I ask for is give me the wisdom to know how to rule your people. He becomes this very powerful, narcissistic,
Exactly.
self-promoting.
Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
And maybe the teaching is, if you're humble, and
Yeah.
if you believe in God, you'll succeed.
Yeah.
If you believe in yourself and see yourself as God,
And this,
you're
you're
in for
seeing
trouble.
this throughout all the kings. They get more and more proud, and look at any other modern government, you know.
It's a very subtle process, so we don't realize it's happening to us individually,
Absolutely.
and we don't
Sure.
lack the perspective.
Well, most of us are not gonna be rulers.
Yeah, but in our own little ways, we succumb.
Well, that's true, and then we think we did it. We're,
Yes.
well, and because of our own efforts instead of damn lucky.
And it's called pride.
Yeah.
But
And
what was he warned against? He
and the
was warned
more-
against those
And the
things.
more arrogance, the less God. That's been more or less the rule throughout literature. Is that the more you think of yourself, the less you have room in your soul for
Oh,
seeing
darn.
yourself as subordinate to other forces, which we usually call God.
Subordinate.
Well, and from a historical context perspective, like, if we take God out of the equation in terms of analyzing just the history and the political things that are happening here, this makes for a really good explanation for why a kingdom would splinter like this. If you allow it, like as we were talking earlier about how nowadays in our democracy, cultural merging is good, and like we love immigrants and things like that. But back then, like that kind of perspective was that if you allow these foreign influences to come in, then you break up the cultural cohesion of your nation, and then it opens up avenues for other nations to start imposing their ideas and their power and things on you. And so I feel like almost attributing some of this to God makes for an explanation as to why like the kingdom broke up, but it also illustrates the historical timeline of how that happened, which I find really interesting.
I do too.
And what we do find in most tribes is if they let too many people in, if they're hunting gathering, they starve to death. And this seems to be wired in. It's not hard if you go into a culture I remember coming to northern Italy and I speak German, and then all of a sudden we cross the line, and all of a sudden it felt like, my God, these are foreigners.
But it's still the same today. I was suggesting, some people say in 50 years, Europe will be speaking Arabic.
Hello?
I don't know about that.
I
What
don't
wisdom did we come to as a, thank you for giving me some space.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Understood.
I was just saying that
Yeah.
I think it's interesting from like.
Well, I'm gonna
historical
come to the
context
house and get
perspective.
him. I don't think you should have to go anywhere.
Uh,
And I'll
Sam, could you-
come straight after here, okay? I'm in class, right?
Yeah.
All right, bye-bye, bye-bye.
I was just saying from like a historical context perspective, it's pretty interesting to see the ways that like they conceptualize the reasons that the kingdom splintered apart, which were because of these foreign influences, especially foreign religion, and I just think that's interesting.
Absolutely, for sure.
And we also talked about absolute power corrupts absolutely, which kind of appears to be what's happened to Solomon here, but it still happens today. We are human.
Right, cometh before a fall, somewhere in
Absolutely.
Proverbs.
Okay. So here we have Jeroboam, son of Nevat, an Ephraimite of Zeredah. So now we've got, so this is a Jew. I don't know why it says Jeroboam. His name is Yerovam. The son of a widow, his name was Zeruiah, was in Solomon's service. He raised his hand against the king. which is interesting. The circumstances under which he raised his hand against the king were as follows. Solomon built the Milo, which was his big fort, and repaired the breach of the city of his father David. This man, Yerovam, was very capable, and when Solomon saw that the young man was a productive worker, he appointed him over all the forced labor of the house of Joseph. So again, as Ephraim and Manasseh, really. He's of Ephraim, he's of the house of Joseph, essentially, right? We know that Joseph got a double portion, so no tribe is called the tribe of Joseph. Instead, they're named after his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. So he was the head over all the, again, it says the forced labor, but really what it means is the taxes. He would collect he would be the tax collector for the tribe, really. And if that meant they had to do work and stuff, he would arrange that as well. But it was mostly taxes. During that time, Yerovam went out of Jerusalem, and the prophet Ahijah of Shiloh met him on the way. He had put on a new robe, and when the two were alone in the open country, Ahijah took hold of the new robe he was wearing and tore it into 12 pieces. Take 10 pieces, he said to Yerovam, for thus said the Eternal, the God of Israel, I am about to tear. By the way, he's called Jeroboam because he's going to be called Jeroboam, but right now he was called. We're doing the same thing we did in the translation that we did before with another. It doesn't matter. With the other son of David that took another name, but it wouldn't call him anyway. It doesn't matter. For thus said the Eternal, the God of Israel, I am about to tear the kingdom out of Solomon's hands, and I will give you 10 tribes. But one tribe shall remain his for the sake of my servant David and for the sake of Jerusalem, the city that I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. For they have forsaken me. They have worshipped Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Phoenicians, Chemosh, the god of Moab, and Milcom, the god of the Ammonites. They have not walked in my ways or done what is pleasing to me, or kept my laws and rules as his father David did. Okay. However, I will not take the entire kingdom away from him, but will keep him as a ruler as long as he lives for the sake of my servant David, whom I chose, and who kept my commandments and my laws. Mostly. There's a little asterisk I always want to put at the end of each one of these where it's like, David, so good. Mostly. Right? But I will take the kingship out of the hands of his son and give it to you, the 10 tribes. So there you go. 10 tribes, right? So one, but not really one, right? So is it 1? Is it 11? Are we counting Joseph as 1 here? Are we not counting Benjamin anymore? It might be the latter, by the way. The chances we're not counting, the Benjamin is no longer with us so much, and they've been totally subsumed since their land was in Judah, that they've been totally subsumed. But in any event, 10 tribes. The northern tribes. Got it. To his son I will give 1 tribe. Again, 1 tribe? 10 tribes, 1 tribe? Famously the 11 tribes, right, guys? No? Okay. Anyway. I will give 1 tribe, so that there may be a lamp for my servant David forever before me in Jerusalem, the city where I have chosen to establish my name. This is part of the idea of we're going to see one of the things that's set up from this point on is that these kingdoms suck. Sorry, that's not very reverent language, but they're bad. They cannot be, God does not have a lot of confidence in them. And God has another plan. That plan, as revealed to you in Deuteronomy, is post 586 is called exile. So we're gonna
Post what?
But 586 BCE is the year that the kingdom of Jerusalem falls. And the kingdom of Judah is no more, and that's the end of and that's the beginning of the Babylonian exile. And from that period starts a chain of exile and return, a new system through which God hopes to forge, like how steel is forged in fire, forge the Jewish people out of our stubbornness
My favorite,
and forge us into what we need to be to truly bring about the redemption of the earth.
one of my favorite aphorisms, the strongest steel goes through the hottest fire.
Much like metallurgy, this seems to be the plan that God has put in motion. And more than that, there will be one redeeming figure, and that person has to be of, so that there may be a lamp for my servant David forever before me in Jerusalem. Right?
It has to be Judy.
Couple things that have to happen here. It's always the Jews. Sorry, we've got lots of good interfaith interpretations of how all the peoples of the earth should be blessed and will get the good ending and everything is good. But that for the redemption of the world to happen, there have to be Jews. Let's say it that way. It's not that nobody else matters, but there have to be Jews in Jerusalem with
Temple.
The temple.
Messiah is an interesting way to say it, but yes, with the temple and a king.
Okay.
The seed of David. Yes, right. Messiah is one way of saying it, but that's weird because Messiah just means anointed one, right? It's a king. Every king is Messiah.
Right.
Right? I mean, technically. Not the way people mean it today, but that's why I don't like to use it, because it has a meaning and I don't think it's
So
useful.
what do you use it instead?
Ben Ishai, Ben David, Melech Israel.
Melech Israel would make sense.
I mean, these are all titles of the
Right.
of the coming figure. But the truth is, we don't know exactly what it's going to look like, and I don't know. I don't have any confidence. By the way, it's one of those interesting things. It's like, we don't need to go into some groups of Jews are like, we need Mashiach now, and some Jews are like, doesn't look like it's going to happen. Let's wait and see. So anyway, so yeah, there's this permanence that's important here, and when all those things are together again, the redemption of the world will happen, and everyone will live in peace, as the later books of the prophets that follow these serve as proof text for. The reason the prophetic books have these histories first, and then these very poetic, hard to decipher prophetic books, is because those serve as proof texts for the history we're seeing. So you can then understand how you get from a history that, quite frankly, and is going to look like the church is going to have a lot to say about the failure of the Jews, quite frankly, and how the Bible proves their downward descent means that they were never going to come back up. Now, obviously, that goes in direct it contravenes what we believe, in that exile was a necessary step on the way to all of humanity's redemption in the form of the Messiah. And, all of the Messianic era that we hope will come when that happens. Anyway. So this is all part of the plan. So we're going to get that David forever, or that Davidic city, the Davidic kingdom. That holding is forever. Even if that kingdom gets destroyed, that's the important part. That holding is forever. But you have been chosen by me. Reign wherever you wish. Doesn't care. And you shall be king over Israel. That's actually a really helpful line. This is like, I should be that. Does anyone know that Mickey Mouse meme from that show where it's like, this is a clue that will come in helpful later? Okay, they know at least. But like, this is a helpful clue that will come in later. This is important because the northern kingdom moves. It doesn't stay in the same place forever. It goes, not that often, but it does have a location change. And so we don't want to say it can only be in one place, because then we'd run into some trouble later. And so here it says, pick wherever you want. Jerusalem has to be right there, can never move, ever, in the history of all of humanity. Northern Kingdom, wherever you want. Doesn't matter. You pick whatever you like.
Mhm.
So it's funny how it's like, this is very clearly, God is kind of setting this up. It's like, this is a placeholder. This is God saying, you know what, if even Shlomo couldn't hack it, I made David, I got David there, I got Shlomo, we were big, everything was great, and even he failed me. New plan. Exile. How do we get there? A united people is strong. They won't fall. We'll divide them, and then they'll fall. But that's the plan. So God goes to the prophet, and the prophet goes to this guy, and the guy says, just like what happened with David when Saul, this is a guy who served the king like David served the king. And the king promoted him because he thought he was really good. Like David got promoted because Saul really loved his music and thought he was good friends with his son and a really cool guy. And now the prophet's coming in and says, hey, you know what? You're going to be king. Isn't that cool? Anyway, so so God's going to divide the people because it's the only way this kingdom is going to fall apart, because there's this, the rabbis will say there's this belief that the Jewish people united enjoy an inherent blessing of God. And so God is required through oath to bless us when we are united. And so God had to divide the kingdoms so that God wasn't held to that deal, right? Like if they're divided and God's like, oh, then it's free. Everything can like look how divided you are. What are you talking about? Like you got two different kingdoms. I know nobody has to know, right? I mean, it's the problem. Anyway, so you'll be king over Israel. If you heed all that I command you and walk in my ways and do what is right in my sight, keeping my laws and commandments as my servant David did, then I will be with you, and I will build for you a lasting dynasty as I did for David. So that's a good promise. It is conditional. It says, hey, if, by the way, if you manage to hit David's heights, maybe we'll make you a big deal. We'll have two big deals. I'd love another big deal, says God. If you get there, I hereby give Israel to you, and I will chastise David's descendants for that sin, though not forever. Anytime anyone says to you, and again, I'm really not trying to pick on Christians, I really apologize. But anytime anyone tries to say to you that the Jewish covenant is in any way not forever. Lo kol hayamim. God's promise was always meant to come through for the Jewish people. And God would like all people to live wonderful lives of peace and comfort without any, because every human being is created with equal human dignity, regardless of their religious status. God wants all of us to be happy and good. But you need a sword to fight with. And the Jews are the sword with which God fights this battle of goodness in the world. Unfortunately, swords get bent out of shape when you use them a lot. And that's happened to us too. We get real tarnished and damaged over time. But we have Shabbos, we have our traditions, and that's like our whetstone, and it keeps us from breaking. Solomon sought to put Jeroboam to death. Jeroboam promptly fled to King Shishak of Egypt. So the next king of Egypt took him in, who was probably one of his best friends. Remember, he was, this was another guy. But anyway, he went to the king of Egypt, who we know has been playing both sides, because he was playing with the Edomites. And he remained in Egypt till the death of Solomon. The other events of Solomon's reign and all his actions and his wisdom are recorded in the book, Divrei Shlomo, the Annals of Solomon. Although we believe those books were split up into Proverbs, Shir Shirim, and Kohelet. That might be one more.
The wizard literature.
Well, that's Proverbs. Well, I mean, a lot of the wisdom, right? Kohelet is also wisdom literature, and that's also Solomon. But those anyway. The length of Solomon's reign in Jerusalem over all Israel was 40 years. Solomon rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of his father David, and his son Rehoboam, you could also say. We say Rehoboam, I don't know, that's what we say. Succeeded him as king.
I'm
No.
impressed. Yeah.
He had 40 years, but at the very end, when he was old, as happened, this is the thing about new countries sometimes.